I love making mosaics, don't you? But you know what I don't love? Grout. Especially when I want to do a project with children, one that will never see the outdoors. I used to wish that there was an easier, safer, tidier way to make mosaics, until I learned this process. Now the technique I'm going to show you today involves, first of all, making your own tiles, colorful, hand-painted tiles made with real clay. Next, I'll show you how to grout the easy way, using non-toxic, odorless acrylic color. It's simple enough for elementary ages, but in the hands of a more advanced student, it is truly beautiful. Step one is to make the tiles. I'm going to use air dry clay today. If you do have a kiln, you can use any smooth body clay and bisque fire your pieces. This is a self-hardening clay from Amico. It works just like a kiln fire clay, but dries very hard without any heat. I've put a piece of canvas paper down to protect my work surface and make it easier to move around. I've rolled out my slab to about 1/4 inch thickness, and I'm not really concerned about the rough edges that I have here, but if you'd like to, you could take a ruler and cut it to make a straight edge. Next, I'm going to take a pointed tool and draw my design directly onto the surface of the clay using light pressure. I've planned my idea ahead of time, keeping in mind that I don't want to overcomplicate my design with too many tiles. Details can be added later in the painting stage. So keep it simple with just a few tiles. If I make a mistake, I just rub it out with my finger. Once my design is complete on the canvas, I take a knife and cut all the way through on the lines, all the way down to the canvas piece. Of course, I would have more of a design drawn out at this point. Then, once I've cut it out, I will set it aside to dry. Now, the clay may take several days for it to dry, so set it aside where it's not going to be disturbed. A couple of hints for working with self-hardening clay. You may see that the pieces want to warp and bend a little bit as they dry. To prevent this, you can take a piece of wax paper or heavy freezer paper, place it over the top of the tiles, and weight it with a book or something not very heavy, because you don't want to flatten it out more, just enough to cause some constant pressure. So I'll set this aside for now. And I have a set of tiles that are already dry and ready to paint. Now, if you have a number of tiles here, one of the first things that I recommend you do is to number the back side of them so that you don't get them mixed up. Use a pencil. You can also take a little bit of fine grit sandpaper and work away any rough edges that might be sticking out and smooth each tile down. Then take a paper towel and brush away any of the dust you might create. I'm going to be using Blick Acrylic Student Acrylics today. These colors mix so well together, and they have a high rate of coverage, so the painting part will go pretty quickly. One of the best things about making your own tiles is that you have the option of either painting each tile individually, as I'm doing here, or painting across the entire piece. After you've painted each tile, set it aside to dry. And I do have a completed piece. Now it's time for what is now my favorite part, the grouting. I've arranged my painted tiles on what is to be my finished background, a piece of yellow foam board. The tiles are arranged with about 1/8 inch spacing between them for grouting, and they're held in place with just a drop of glue. In the squeeze bottle, I have Blick acrylic paint. I've used black, but you can use any other color you want to for the grout. In fact, if you look over my shoulder, there's an example that uses green grout. Place the nozzle between the tiles and squeeze gently to fill, like so. Now continue until you have the entire piece filled. As the acrylic paint dries, it will flatten between the tile pieces. And if you take a look over at this example I have over here, you can see how flat the paint is in between. You may prefer a more raised look for your grout. In that case, what I recommend you do first is, before you apply the paint, fill between each of the tiles with some white glue. This is Blick multi-purpose white glue. And then after it dries, apply the acrylic grout on top of it. Now I'd like to show you a couple of options and examples. I have a piece over here that was done on a more elementary level. So you can see it can be very simple with just very few pieces and still be so effective. And in this piece that I have on display, the tiles themselves are part of a painting. They extend over the edge of a canvas panel, and while the clay was still moist, the artist created some texture to the tiles themselves. You know, I know you're going to love this easy method for making mosaics safely in your classroom. So head to dickblick.com/lesson plans and find the materials list, a printable sheet with complete instructions, pictures, and teaching standards. Thank you for joining me today.